to PhD or not to PhD. Before I begin, I would briefly introduce myself and Education USA to you guys, those of you especially who are being a part of the audience for the first time. So, like I said, my name is Amna. I graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park with a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics and went on to complete my MBA from IBA Karachi. In today's session, we're going to be talking about all things PhD related, from exploring the decision-making process to understanding what a PhD journey entails and evaluating the career outcomes that it can lead to. This webinar, as you know, is ideal for prospective doctoral students seeking clarity on whether or not, and especially how, to move forward with the PhD applications. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get started with today's session. Again, for the people who joined in later, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box, and I will be happy to address them at the end of the presentation before we close for today's session. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Education USA. As you can see on the screen, Education USA is a part of the US Department of State network with more than 400 international student advising centers in more than 170 countries and territories across the world. Education USA provides free advising services to Pakistani students who are interested in pursuing their bachelor's, master's, or PhD in the United States, and it is your official source of accurate, complete, and up-to-date information on all US higher education. So, like I said, we have free advising services. You will have one advisor assigned to you who you can meet with to ask questions and get feedback regarding your applications, your shortlisted universities, your statement of purpose, and anything else. If you would like to reach out to us, please feel free to visit our website, educationusa.pk, and register there for our free advising services. Additionally, we also have an application that works like WhatsApp. You can scan the QR codes that are shown on the screen and download the application and use it to message any advisor, and we'd be happy to address you. The timings for this option are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And here is a list of some of the workshops and webinars that we have been conducting in the second half of June. As you can see, there's a wide array of topics that we cover for both undergrad as well as grad audiences. So if you would like to stay informed about upcoming workshops and webinars, again, just make sure you register on our website, or you can click on the upcoming events tab on the website and see what we have coming up for you. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the US application process. At a glance, it can seem a bit daunting, which is why Education USA has broken down this entire process into 5 simple steps for you. Step 1, as you can see on the screen, is researching your options. This is by far and large the most important step in the entire process. Step 2 is financing your studies, so figuring out the scholarships, the merit-based or need-based financial aid that you're looking for, any institutional funding. Step 3 is completing your application. This includes writing your essays, requesting your letters of recommendation, submitting your applications. Step 4 is applying for your student visa. So this includes filling out the service fee, filling out your US 160, and applying for your US F1 visa. And finally, we have getting ready to depart, preparing for your departure, which is the pre-departure orientation that Education USA conducts for its students who have been accepted to programs across the United States. So regardless of which of these steps you are on, even if you're on step 4 right now, which is the visa process, or if you're on step 1 and you're thinking about applying this fall for next year's intake, Education USA advisors are here to help you out. And you don't have to worry about which step you are on in this horizontal trajectory. All you need to do is just reach out to one of the advisors. You can reach out to us at karachi@educationusa.org, and we would be more than happy to assist you with your queries. On that note, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what are some reasons that people want to study in the United States. So I'm going to pause here and I will give you an opportunity to type in the Q&A box. What are some reasons, or what is the main reason that you think you want to study in the United States? All right, anybody else? Any reasons that you want to list? Okay, so let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Here are just a few of the reasons that students opt for studying in the United States. The first, as you can see, is recognition. American degrees are recognized globally. So if you graduate from a US institution, you don't have to worry about equivalency or about whether or not your degree will be recognized in a different country. The second is obviously quality. The US education system is renowned for its outstanding academic standards and dynamic curriculums. The third is student life. The US is not just home to some of the best and top notch universities in the world, but it also offers an amazing campus life that is vibrant and diverse. Living in dormitories on campus, along with attending on campus events, offers students a wide range of experiences and opportunities to learn from and enjoy. Then we have flexibility. The US higher education system recognizes that when you enter a university, you might be coming from a diverse background, which is why it allows you to make changes in the curriculum if needed, and to work with an advisor on the university campus designated to you so that you can go ahead and make sure you complete your degree on time. Next is diversity. The US is home to so many universities that have both local as well as satellite campuses, and so many students who come from countries from all across the world. So this is a great way to, expand your network, meet new people, make new friends, and establish a long-lasting professional working relationship with your peers as well as your professors. And finally, there's funding. The US does happen to be one of the most generous countries in the world, which is why students continue to opt for US universities, because they know that they have a good shot at securing the funding that they need in order to be able to fulfill their dream of an international, high quality, top notch US education. All right. Now that we've talked about why USA, let's talk about why PhD. This is a really important part of this entire presentation, because here you will do a little bit of deep diving into why exactly it is that you wish to pursue a PhD in the United States, right? Now, before I go through the list of questions on the screen, I would like to point out how a PhD is different from other programs. So depending on the PhD program, you may have some structured coursework and exams, but for the research part of a PhD, which is the most important, please remember, one, there is no syllabus. You have to design your own project and decide what to do. B, there is no set timetable. You have to manage your own time and set your own priorities. C, there is no standard exam. You have to defend your work in front of an expert panel, and you don't know what they might ask. So the big fundamental difference is that in a PhD, you're trying to discover new knowledge rather than learning established concepts. So it's not just different from everything that you've done before. In many respects, it's the complete opposite, where in an undergrad degree or a master's degree, you are going over established theorems and established philosophies that have now been accepted as the norm. In a PhD, you're trying to create something new, and that obviously requires a different kind of skill set, perhaps not the one that you are used to for your prior degrees. Having said that, let's look at the list on the screen. And these are just a few questions that I came up with based on the research that I did for this session that are important in deep diving and figuring out whether or not you're doing the PhD for the right reasons. So one of the questions that you can ask yourself is, am I passionate and enthusiastic about my work? If you're in a field that is not your passion, that you don't feel passionate, that you don't feel strongly about, or that you do not wish to create new contributions in, then perhaps this is not the degree that you wish to pursue, because this does require a lot of time and a lot of energy of yours. And that also for more than half a decade, right? The second question is, do I set and pursue ambitious goals? How ambitious are you with regards to your academic, personal, professional, financial goals? Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years? All of these are important questions to ask yourself when you are thinking about whether or not a PhD is the right decision for you. Next question, am I aiming for mastery and growth? So if you're somebody who's comfortable with the amount of information or knowledge that you've gained about your field, and you don't wish to continue spending 5 to 7 more years in building on it and further expanding it and challenging the preconceived notions that you have with regards to different parts of the field, then perhaps a PhD is not the right thing for you. But if you're somebody who wants to master everything that there is to master in their field, and not just that, they want to grow themselves and they want the field to grow through their contributions, which are based on original primary research, then a PhD is the right way to go for you. Next, do I have effective work habits? Now, of course, if you have gotten to a point that you're considering a PhD, there is no doubt that you have come far in life and you are successful at whatever academic endeavors that you have undertaken. However, that being said, you do need to mentally be prepared for the fact that there's burnout and there is shifting life priorities as you move along in your life journey. And when you're thinking about signing up for a PhD, it's a significant commitment. So you have to ask yourself, do I still have the effective work habits that are needed to make me a good PhD student who will be able to complete the degree on time and do so in a positive, enjoyable, fruitful manner. Next, am I resilient and adaptable? This is another important one, because you don't know what kind of a relationship you will have with your supervisors or with your peers or with different people at different conferences until you are actually there. So it's important to know what you're signing up for, and in case any challenges or any unexpected hurdles come, you do need to be resilient and adapt to those and overcome them, right? Next, you need to delve deeper about what motivates you. What exactly is it that's motivating you to pursue this degree, to pursue higher, further education, to pursue your career? So think about what it is that motivates you about this entire field, about your job, about your future prospects. Next, do I work well independently? A lot of you might feel very comfortable in thriving within a professional arena where you have clear instructions being given and a timeline assigned to them, and you are under control when it comes to performing those tasks and delivering high quality deliverables, right? But in a PhD it's not like that. In a PhD there's a lot more independence, there's a lot more timeline uncertainty, there's a lot more that is left up to you as the PhD student, as opposed to having clear cut instructions. So if you're not somebody who works well independently, then perhaps this is not the right path for you. But if you're somebody who's very good at managing your time, managing the resources, planning projects, managing projects, and conducting research, all while teaching, hopefully, if you want to teach while you're doing your PhD, in TAships or RShips, then that is a good idea for you to pursue a PhD. Next, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty. So you need to ask yourself, can I handle uncertainty? Similarly, if you're not somebody who likes to be criticized, then maybe you need to reconsider this, because as an academic who's trying to create new content for the field and forevermore, there will be a lot of criticism or questioning about the kind of papers that you are writing or the project that you're working on. And your research methodology will be cross-questioned and will come on fire. So you need to be ready mentally and logistically to be able to defend your choices and explain why it is that you chose certain mechanisms. Next, am I knowledgeable in my field? If you feel like you don't have enough experience, or you haven't been in the field long enough, or you need more time before you make this commitment, then you need to think about whether or not a PhD right now is the right choice for you. But if you feel like you've been in the field for a long time, you've got valuable insights that other people can benefit from, and you can make the syntheses that are necessary to create lasting contributions for the field itself, then definitely you should go ahead with it. And finally, the last question, the most important one, can I see my projects through to completion despite challenges or obstacles? Because like I said, the start at the time of starting a PhD, everybody thinks that they're going to do it in the minimum amount of time, but unexpectedly life happens, challenges might come up, and sometimes you have to put up with unplanned circumstances. In those cases, do you have that commitment, do you have that willpower to see the projects that you have undertaken through to completion despite the difficult situations that you might face? This is a really important question that you need to ask yourself if you are thinking of pursuing a PhD. Now that we've talked about these basic questions, let's talk a little bit about some of the reasons that people pursue PhDs. So, based on the screen, you can see that some valid reasons for pursuing a PhD are passion for research. Like I said, if you're somebody who is brimming to the top with ideas, original ideas that they can't wait to further work on, and spend time in further developing and then refining, and then presenting to the professors at large and defending before a board, and then publishing in papers, then you should go for it. Similarly, if you have a desire to teach, if you want to be a part of the academia and you want to see yourself as a tenured professor or a professor, in the long run, and you think a PhD is needed to do that, then this is a valid reason for you to go ahead and pursue this. If you have a love for problem solving, if there's a burning problem that you've been struggling with for the past couple of years that you just need to find the answer for, and you want a university support in doing so, then in the sciences, there's a lot of financial support available for PhD students, and perhaps this is the right path for you. However, if you are somebody who's doing a PhD just because it's prestigious, just because it's the last terminal degree, just because it's fancy and you want that doctor title next to your name, then that's perhaps not a good enough reason by itself. to pursue a PhD. Sure, prestige is a very important factor when it comes to overall reasons for pursuing PhDs, but it should not be your primary or sole motivating factor. Next, if the only reason you're doing a PhD is for immigration purposes, once again, please remember it does not guarantee that you're going to get citizenship in whichever country you go to for the PhD. So this is not a pathway to immigration. This is not a surefire way of becoming a citizen of that country, or securing a green card or a passport. That should not be your primary and sole motivation. Next, if you're unsure of what else to do, so if you're just a student who's completed their undergrad and now are like, I don't know what else to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and start a PhD because I can't find a job that's paying enough money, so why not spend this time in pursuing a PhD? Or if you're somebody who's already done their masters but now are in a job that perhaps they're a little unhappy with or dissatisfied with, and they've hit a career wall, and they think, okay, I don't know what else to do, so why don't I just do a PhD? Once again, these are not good reasons, solely and primarily to pursue a PhD. You need to be mindful that if these are the reasons that you are pursuing it, then that's problematic. And at some point or the other, you will find yourself dissatisfied with your choices. So at the end of the day, just remember, yes, you could be unsure, you could have prestige in mind, but the primary reason should be that you're passionate about research, you want to pursue something that PhDs are needed for, and you love problem solving, and you want to solve. You have a burning desire to solve problems that you have come across in your time in this field. All right. So, what does a PhD structure look like in the United States? As you can see, there's coursework and there's qualifying exams that follow it. You have to clear the qualifying exams and then conduct research and then defend your research in a thesis paper and then through a dissertation in front of a panel in order to qualify and secure your PhD degree. So typically, this entire process takes 5 to 7 years, and this also involves during those 5 to 7 years teaching roles, TA-ship or RA-ship roles, and attending conferences and presenting at those conferences, and perhaps even co-writing papers or reviewing, other people's work as a part of the tasks that are assigned to you. So please be mentally ready that it's not just coursework and exams and research and dissertation. There's also all of this that's happening alongside it, right? Now let's talk about before you apply. So before you apply for PhD programs, one of the first things that you should do is you should talk to the current students who are in that program. Students who are alumni of your institution or students who are alumni of the institution that you want to attend. You should have a detailed discussion with them. Tell them more about your motivations for pursuing a PhD. Ask them about their motivations and experience in pursuing a PhD, and just exchange notes on how their experience has been, what's their journey like, what are some pro tips that they can give you. Next, you should do informational interviews. What this means is you can sit down with your professors or with senior faculty members and have a conversation with them about your future plans and ask them for their input about whether or not they think you're ready to embark on this significant commitment. Next, you should read dissertations to get an idea of what kind of work you're expected to produce and what the final product of your research will look like, so that when you enter the program, you already have a clear idea of how to set up how to set up a project and how to present it at the end of its completion. And finally, very important, you need to identify faculty mentors. So one of the most important things in a PhD program is making sure that your research areas align with your professors' research areas. So if the more research you do on potential professors that you would like to work with at different universities, by following their LinkedIn, by reaching out to them by email, by just reading up their papers and becoming familiar with the kind of work and projects that they're doing, it's going to ensure that you make an informed decision when it comes to choosing a school and choosing a professor. Okay. Another important slide right here is the PhD application timeline. Now, this is extremely important, so I would encourage all of you who are seriously thinking about pursuing a PhD to take a screenshot of this page, please. In the summer, before you start your PhD, so that would be if you're applying for next fall, then that would be this summer right now for those students who wish to apply this year. And this summer, the first thing that you need to do is identify programs that you're interested in. The second thing is you need to complete any required testing. So GRE is one of them, GMAT is another one that you might have to think about. There are different universities have different testing requirements. I saw a question in the Q&A box that asked, can you get into a PhD program without a GRE? And the answer is yes, depends on the GRE, it depends on the program. All programs do not require GREs, all programs do not require GMATs in the business arena. But there are some universities which will mention that they do prefer a certain score range of the GRE. So if you've gotten a high enough score on the GRE, it could benefit your application and help you in securing the funding that you need in order to be able to attend that university. But that being said, having a GRE score might not be a required part of the application process. So keep this in mind when you're thinking about whether or not you want to commit to taking the GRE. And if you do choose to give the GRE because you are interested in trying to secure a high enough score to increase your chances at funding, please make sure you do so with prior preparation, with complete dedication, and you know what you're signing up for. The format of the GRE has now changed. It's no longer 4.5 hours. So become familiar with the newer, shorter GRE and understand the kind of questions that you can expect on the test. All right. So this is this summer. So this is June, July, right here. June, July, and August, where you will be doing these things. Let's move on next to fall. So fall is September to November. This is where you will start opening application portals, writing your personal statement or your research statements, and requesting letters of recommendation from your different professors. Again, different programs have different letter of recommendation requirements. Some will require academic letters of recommendation. Some will require professional recommendations only. And some will require both, right? So you need to know how many letters are required, from whom the program wants to get a letter of recommendation, and then get in touch with those people accordingly. Also, please remember, if you are requesting your professors for letters of recommendation, it's important to ask them whether they wish to write you one first and then add their email on the database. Because if they receive an email from the university saying that XYZ has requested a letter of recommendation and you haven't had that conversation, that's a very awkward situation to be in. Because if they refuse at that point saying, I'm traveling, or I'm not well, or I'm taking a break, or I'm on a sabbatical right now, that's going to put you in a difficult position. So please make sure you first talk to your professor and then enter their email information into the system for requesting LORs. All right, now let's talk about winter, December to February. This is where you'll be submitting the applications. Then there is December to April. This is generally also when you start receiving decision letters. You will also attend visitation weekends and virtual orientations where you will be introduced to the program and you will get to meet different faculty members who will be interacting with you during your course of study. Finally, in spring, you will be deciding on a school. And just a small side note, the national US deadline to decide on which school you wish to attend is May 1st. It's usually a hard and fast deadline, but sometimes due to special circumstances, students may have to extend this and universities are understanding. But be mentally ready that before May 1st, you should know which university you wish to commit to. All right. Now that we've talked about that, how do you find the best fit university? Again, researching what you are interested in is the first way to get started. Having clear career goals will also help you figure out which programs perfectly align with your goals, both long term as well as short term, both personal as well as professional, and both academic related as well as research related. Next, you should also look at the size of the program and see which program is a good fit for you. Of course, funding is really important, so you need to keep your budgetary constraints in mind and find a university that has the right kind of funding opportunities that make it a good financial fit for you as well, right? Because the goal is not just to be able to get into a program, the goal is to be able to attend it. And that can only be possible if you have the funds that are needed to attend that university. And finally, there's the applications themselves. The more informed you are and well-versed you are with regards to application deadlines, application requirements, application fees, and anything and everything else that is related to the applications, the more research you do, the more confident you will feel. The more confident you will feel, the higher the likelihood that you will be able to complete everything on time in a smooth and stress-free manner. So please remember, staying organized and staying ahead of the game is key in submitting your PhD applications, especially because there are a lot of small components that go into it. How to search for a PhD school, as you can see on the screen. Once again, you can take a screenshot. You go to gradschools.com and your search for graduate school starts here, right? So this is basically a forum that has different programs that are listed there. Once you're there, you can look for the doctorate degrees and PhD programs specifically. And then you can look at the difference between the two. A doctorate is the highest level of academic degree awarded by a university, and it's typically showing that an individual is qualified to teach at the post-secondary level or work in a specific field or profession, right? So there are two major types of doctoral degrees: the research-oriented degree and the professional doctorate degree. All right. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the upcoming slides as well. And finally, there is this list that will show up, step 4, where you can explore the different programs that show up based on your search entries. And you can click on the names to further view detailed overviews of those programs and of those institutions. How do you pay for a PhD? One of the most popular questions that students ask us, how do I pay for it? So just remember, there are more than 4,000 US universities and colleges in the United States, and they have a variety of merit-based, need-based, and institutional funding. Your focus should be on looking for the best financial fit college. This means that it's a good fit for your academic journey, for your future long-term goals professionally, and also for your financial limitations or financial budget that you have, right? Whenever you're planning on attending a university, please make sure you look at the total cost of attendance, not just the tuition, because the cost of living, the cost of food, beverages, housing, transportation, all of this factors into the total cost that you will have to incur. Next, try to choose programs which have guaranteed 5-year funding. So keep an eye out for tuition waivers. Look for monthly stipends. On average, $25,000 to $35,000 per year is what is granted to PhD students, depending on the field and the university. And finally, look for different fellowships and grants. Important things to remember are there are main clear differences between public versus private institutions. So know the difference and know the nuances, and keep an eye out for the small indicators that you can find in whether or not an institution is generous to international students versus not generous. Again, like I said, graduate assistantships are very handy when it comes to paying for your degree. So try to focus on finding the right GA-ships and fellowships. Look for independent scholarships. You can consider the Fulbright Scholarship, which is for Pakistani students as well as other students across the world. But Pakistan has one of the largest cohorts of Fulbrighters from across the entire globe. And finally, you can look at whatever personal funds you have available and assess what amount it is that you are capable of contributing to your PhD degree and how much difference there is between the total cost of attendance and your budget to find out what the gap is that you wish to look for through funding. All right. Let's talk about GA-ships here. Graduate assistantships or GA-ships are appointed to students to provide service in the form of employment to the institution. In exchange for their service, either in the form of teaching or research, an assistantship provides A, a monthly salary, B, tuition remission, C, an institutional contribution toward mandatory fees, and C, the graduate assistant-only health insurance premium. So as you can see, this provides financial support to graduate students, and fellowships are generally merit-based internal or external awards to support a student in a full-time course of study. Now let's look at some more scholarships. Again, please feel free to take a picture of the page. There are different scholarships that are either institution-specific or that are completely independent of universities or that are based on merit. So in the merit category, you can look for the Fulbright Scholarship or the Humphrey Scholarship. Then there is the cultural scholarships that you might find, scholarships specifically for women in a certain field, or scholarships specifically for South Asian students in a specific field. And then you can look for independent scholarships like the Aga Khan Foundation's International Scholarship Program. As you can see on the page, US Education Foundation Pakistan is the awarder of the Fulbright Scholarship in Pakistan. So if you need more information about the Fulbright itself, the application timeline, requirements for Fulbright, please feel free to visit the usefp.org website and look at the requirements for the Fulbright. What are some documents that are required in order to submit a PhD application? Of course, you need your academic transcripts. You will need a personal statement. It could be a personal statement or a statement of purpose. There is a clear difference between the two, so don't get confused. And be very mindful of which kind your university is requiring. We've done webinars in the past on the difference between an SOP and personal statement. So if you don't know the difference, please go ahead, visit the Education USA Pakistan YouTube page and watch the webinar in order to make sure that you are writing the right kind of statement. Next, there are letters of recommendation. I've already mentioned that different universities might have different LOR requirements. Some universities want to hear from your professors. Some universities want to hear from your supervisor at the current job or recent jobs. And some universities want a combination of both. So you should know how many LORs are expected and you should be ready to furnish them as needed. Again, test scores vary from university to university and program to program. All universities don't require you to take the GRE or the GMAT, but some universities do require it. And some universities don't require it, but they will give it consideration when giving financial awards. Next, if some universities might ask you to have a research statement, whereas other universities might not require you to write a research statement. So be mentally ready and aware of which universities have what requirements. And if a research statement is needed, then you should be working on that as well. Some universities additionally also ask for writing samples, whereas other programs don't want any prior writing samples and they're happy with just a CV. And most programs will require you to submit a CV. If you don't know the difference between a curriculum vitae and a resume, then we do have a session that is coming up next month on the difference between a CV and a resume and how to polish up your CV for graduate programs. So please stay tuned and make sure you sign up for that. All right, talking about a research proposal, this is a document that is between 3,000 to 4,000 words. It focuses deeply on your research and PhD programs, and most of the universities require this document. So if you're signing up for a PhD, then you should be ready with a research proposal. It should be clear in your mind about what the title and abstract will be, what your literature review is going to look like, what is the research problem, what's the aim, what's the objective, what are some ethical considerations that you might have, and any references that you might wish to include. All right. LORs are minimum usually 3 and 5 are also accepted sometimes. Again, varies from university to university. They do need to be submitted electronically. So be mentally ready that whichever professor you request them from or whichever supervisor, they need to know how to be able to submit an electronic LOR and, just walk them through the process. They'll receive an email. They will need to upload a document, submit it on the portal. 2 LORs should be written by past faculty to show that you're academically ready and have a sound academic background that prepares you for a PhD program. For test scores, GRE is what is required for most PhD programs. The GMAT is required for a doctoral degree in business administration or a PhD in business, as you can say. An LSAT is required for JD programs, an MCAT is required for MD programs, and a DAT is required for dental programs. 3 kinds of language proficiency tests. There are much more than these 3, but just 3 are IELTS, TOEFL, and Duolingo. There's the Pearson test of English as well. Again, some universities will not require you to give a specific language proficiency test as long as your medium of education prior to this degree has been in English, but some universities do require you to take it. So varies from university to university, and the only way you can find out what is needed is by knowing which program and university you're aiming for. All right. Now, once again, I know I've shown you this slide before, but why am I bringing you back to this? Because this slide is extremely important. You need to understand the structure of a PhD in the United States, and oftentimes people don't understand that qualifying exams are a very important and key part of the entire PhD process. If students don't clear their qualifying exams, that's where their PhD journey ends and they have to drop out. So please be mentally ready that there is a clear pattern to it. There's going to be coursework. You will have to successfully pass the qualifying exams with the required grades in order to move on to the next phase, which is a lot of in-depth research. And then you have to write your dissertation, defend your dissertation, submit your dissertation for publication, and then you can receive your degree. And this is all alongside other roles that you might have that you might choose to opt for, or that might be a mandatory requirement as a part of your program if you're receiving any kind of funding, which is teaching roles, TN, RShip roles, and mandatory conference attendance, right? So just keep this in mind. Now, qualifying evaluation is required to be conducted in the first 2 years for each student, and the satisfaction of this is necessary in order to continue in the graduate program, and it is also recorded in your academic record. So like I said, this is basically going to show the university that you have retained the knowledge that is needed to commence primary research, and if you don't clear this, then you cannot move on to the next part. As you can see on the screen, the dissertation is the final part, and there's a lot of different steps that are associated with it. From the formatting and the content of the dissertation, to the committee composition and meetings, to the dissertation status, to the public representation and defense, the acceptance of the dissertation, the publication and submission, and the dissertation copyright and patent policies, there is an entire process that needs to be followed in order to complete the final step before you can receive your PhD. Now, once you've done your dissertation, all of those steps are complete, and you have been approved, what can you do with a PhD? There's a lot that you can do with this degree, that you can enter academia if you've always dreamt of becoming a professor and giving back to the educational community at the highest level. Then you can go ahead and opt for that. You will have to rise through the ranks, of course. So all students don't directly get tenure tracks, and they sometimes have to go through the associate professor, then assistant professor, then associate professor, and then a full professor title. So be mentally ready that even in academia, there is a process that is followed. Other industries that you can go into includes the STEM industry, data science industry, biotechnology industry, depending on what kind of PhD you've done. Alternatives are policy making, publishing publications and publishing your own research, becoming a full-time author, co-authoring papers, working with different non-governmental organizations on different causes that are close to your heart and that your research has been relevant to, and working with governmental organizations or governmental bodies in improving the implementation of different policies at the grassroots level. Regardless of which of these you choose, there are different options that you can consider if you are planning on pursuing a PhD in your field. Now, another important thing that students don't account for is there is a changing landscape that is in play, which means that only 20% approximately of PhD students get tenure track roles, and the others, like I said, have to rise through the ranks. So it's not guaranteed that you will get lifetime, permission to teach. You do have to be mentally ready that that's only approximately 20%. Alternatives that you can consider if this is something you're interested in is a master's in work experience, or going into different research jobs, or going for professional doctorates, which are the EDD, the DBA, and the PsyD, for example. If you don't know what these are, it's a good idea to go ahead and conduct more research about the difference between an EDD versus a PhD in education, and a DBA versus a PhD in business leadership or business management, and fully explore the differences between those programs before you commit to either one of them. The reality of the PhD life is that there are long hours. There will be imposter syndrome. Sometimes you will feel like you don't deserve to be in a room full of academics, or perhaps that you're not as smart as them, or as qualified as them, or as well read as them, or as experienced as them. And that's normal, and that's okay. Most PhD graduates do admit that at some point or another they did experience this, but it's a part of it. And the important thing to remember is that there are also breakthrough moments where you will feel like this was the best decision of your life, that, this is it. And you made a really good call in pursuing a PhD because you have made significant advancements in your research, or because you've uncovered some new aspect of your research area that has not been explored as yet, and you were super keen on exploring it in great detail. Another important thing to remember is your advisor relationship has a direct impact on your satisfaction levels and your mental, physical, emotional, and psychological health as a PhD student. So finding the right advisor, making sure you're the right support system for them, and having a great working relationship will really ensure that you are satisfied and thriving within your PhD program. Next, you have to be ready for funding struggles. All universities don't guarantee 5 years of funding, which means that after whatever funding you've been awarded expires, then you have to look for funding from scratch, or try to arrange it all over again. So please be ready that this is something that comes up. And if you can, like I said, try to find programs that guarantee 5 years of funding at the start. Final thoughts. Doing a PhD can be a fantastic experience because you get to take a deep dive into a subject that you're interested in, because you get to develop rare and valuable skills. You get to work with brilliant people. And when you make a discovery or figure out something new, it feels really good. Additionally, it can also open the door to a career in academia, which might allow you to contribute something to the world through research and teaching. However, there are some caveats to it. Firstly, it doesn't suit everybody. Not everybody has what it takes to go through and complete a PhD. Not all PhDs are equal. So what this means is that not only are there different subjects and different kinds of PhDs have different requirements, but the amount of support that you will get in your PhD is also different from program to program, university to university, supervisor to supervisor. And finally, doing a PhD doesn't necessarily make you more employable. This does not guarantee that you're suddenly going to have a lot of money or this will solve all your financial problems. So if this is the reason that you're pursuing a PhD, perhaps you need to think about what kind of financial gains you can get from this degree, and then make the commitment, right? So if a PhD is done for the right reasons, it can be one of the most meaningful paths that you will embark on. And regardless of whether or not you choose to do a PhD, just remember you are capable of doing deep, impactful work in the world. Your curiosity, your resilience, and your drive have already set you apart. Just the fact that you're considering this degree also means that you are halfway there in terms of mentally being ready to embark upon a significant commitment for your time, for your energy, for your resources. Additionally, every step that you take, PhD or not, is a part of a journey that is worth celebrating. So please don't put that pressure on yourself and think that if I don't become a PhD, then in XYZ years, then I don't deserve to, celebrate myself or celebrate my work. So if you choose to pursue a PhD, key takeaway, you should go in informed, empowered, and excited, right? The more research you do, the more you ask people about their experiences, the more informed you will be about how you need to start the program, what it will take from you, and how you can prepare to be ready to deliver all of those requirements. And if you choose not to pursue a PhD, just remember you can still grow, you can still learn, and you can still thrive in powerful ways, right? Now, on the next slide, I have a few resources that I just wanted to mention. There's Education USA, there's PhD Comics, there's which is basically a comic strip from Stanford PhD graduate who talks about the real life of a PhD student. So if you want to know what the real life of a PhD student is like, please go ahead and read his comic strips. They're really entertaining, and they have received a lot of applause from across America. Then we have the Grad Cafe admission statistics. If you are curious about who got accepted this year in this term to an XYZ program at XYZ University, please Google the Grad Cafe admission statistics, and you can look at the different admission statistics for different programs and different universities in real time, actually. So very recent ones as well. And finally, there's an excellent article on Medium that is called Should I Do a PhD? If you haven't read that already, please go ahead and go through that again. Closing thoughts. Pursue a PhD because you love science or because you have a burning question about a topic that you want to investigate further. You should do it because you want to push your limits and you want to create new knowledge. In the sciences, you should expect that you will receive financial support in the form of a graduate assistantship. So a PhD is something that you do for yourself. Do a PhD if you like having your mind stretched, exploded, occasionally stomped, and then reassembled into something wonderful and new. Don't think I wouldn't mind doing a PhD after my studies sounds fun. The bottom line is, if you don't have a strong, burning desire to dedicate several years of your life to a big research project, then you need to think about whether or not you're ready to embark on this yet. And if you are ready, then please go ahead and get started on the different steps that are required, especially in the summer before you apply. And if you have any queries, you can always reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you. This is my email address, achandla@educationusa.org. This is our website where you can register for our advising services and get a designated Education USA advisor. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time. Moving on to the questions now. Let me quickly have a look at the Q&A box. All right. Any research proposal documents that you can give or link that you can share? Okay, that's a very specific question. And you can email us at karachi@educationusa.org or at my email, and I'd be more than happy to assist you. You can also set up a one-on-one meeting with me, and I can get a better idea of what your field is, and then share research document related information with you accordingly, because of course it's not the same for different fields. Online writing center about writing for PhDs and statements. All right, once again, I would recommend that you set up an appointment with me, and I would be more than happy to guide you on how to get started with writing that. But like I said, we've already done a detailed webinar on how to get started with your statement of purpose and your personal statement. So if you haven't seen that, please go ahead and see it. All right. Okay, great. There's one more question that says, interested in pursuing a PhD in political science. Notice that the discipline isn't explicitly listed in the humanities or the social sciences category. Can you please advise which category would be the most appropriate to select in this case? So, in this case, I would recommend that you actually reach out to the university directly and ask them how they qualify this, because again, some universities will look at a specific thing differently. I'll give you my example. I went to the University of Maryland, right? So over there, there were two different streams of economics. There was a BA degree in economics and there was a BS degree in economics. And the difference was that the BS degree was more mathematical. So if when I was in your shoes and I didn't know which degree was which, I actually just reached out to their team and got in touch with them and asked them about, okay, what's the difference between the two kinds and how do I know which one is right for me? Excellent. Um, all right. Last question. Are online PhD programs authentic? That's a great question. Again, when we have that meeting, we can have that discussion about this. But just remember that because PhDs require a lot of primary research that needs to be done on the ground, doing a PhD virtually might be difficult in terms of just conducting the research. But again, we can have a deeper conversation about that during our session. And final question, like many other countries, students approach professors for PhD proposal approval. Does this help in the USA? Absolutely. But some universities discourage reaching out to professors directly, and they say that they will assign the professor to you based on their assessment of your application, and they will match the application to the professor. Whereas other universities are more open about you approaching professors and they don't mind if you reach out to them directly. So it's important to know what stance the university and the professor themselves have on this. Of course, you don't want to annoy a professor by reaching out too frequently or repeatedly when they don't want to be approached. But if a professor is open to having a conversation, having a meeting, then why not? It's definitely going to give you an edge, and it will help, if nothing else, to make a more informed decision. So, but before you do that, please make sure that you conduct thorough research and know which kind this is. All right, somebody's asking for my email. I will go back to the email slide. This is my email, as you can see on the screen. Please take a screenshot and you should be able to reach out to me. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your questions and for being such a lovely audience. I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy the weather and take care of yourselves. And if you have any questions at all, we are just one email or one message away. Thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye.